When we think about greatness in football, we usually think about volume, the roar of the crowd, the power of a shot, the sheer noise that a global superstar makes. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of greatness. A quieter one, a legacy that belongs to a player who wasn't just a champion, but was a symbol of grace and a kind of loyalty that's almost extinct. This is the story of Alessandro Del Piero.
And that quote right there, "He did it with elegance," that just says it all, doesn't it? In a sport that was getting more and more physical, more about pure power, Del Piero's brilliance was in his artistry. He didn't just steamroll opponents, he outthought them, he outdanced them, and he did it all with this signature, understated style.
All right, so let's dig in. Where does a player like this even come from? To really get it, we've got to go back to the beginning, to see how the foundations were laid for a player who would one day define one of the biggest clubs on the planet.
And that right there, that was his secret weapon. See, while other kids were focused on getting stronger and faster, Del Piero had something you just can't teach. It was this footballing sixth sense, an instinct for where the ball needed to go and how to get it there with the least amount of fuss and the most amount of beauty. It was a gift. And boy, did he put that gift to use. When he shows up at Juventus as a teenager, he walks into this pressure cooker of history and expectation. But he didn't just survive, he absolutely thrived. By the mid-90s, he wasn't just some promising kid anymore, he was the future of the club. And it all led to that moment in 1996 when he was a central piece in Juventus winning the Champions League. He was still young, but make no mistake, he was already a leader. And with that leadership comes something else, the ultimate symbol in Italian football, the number 10 shirt. Now, at a club like Juventus, that jersey, it's heavier than any other. It carries the weight of history, of genius, of expectations. It's a burden. But Del Piero, he didn't just wear it, he embodied it, and he carried that burden with this quiet dignity that would become his trademark.
But every great career has that one moment, that one trial by fire that tests everything you are. For Del Piero, that moment was coming, and it was going to threaten to take away everything he'd ever worked for. And listen, we're not talking about a minor knock here. This was a catastrophic knee injury, the kind that careers just don't come back from. All that explosiveness, that burst of speed that made his technical skills so deadly, it was just gone. He was at a crossroads, and he had to reinvent not just his game, but his entire identity as a player.
So what do? Well, he couldn't rely on that raw physical power anymore. So he did something brilliant. He doubled down on his greatest weapon, his footballing brain. He might have lost a step of pace, but what he gained was a whole new level of tactical genius. His game became less about explosions and more about surgery. Perfect precision, flawless positioning, and a vision of the game that was just on another level. He didn't just recover, he evolved.
So he overcomes this huge personal battle, right? But the story doesn't stop there. Because a storm was brewing, a crisis that was about to hit his club, Juventus, and hit them hard. This was the moment that would truly define him. The Calciopoli scandal. This was an absolute earthquake for Italian football. A massive match-fixing scandal. And Juventus was right at the center of it. The punishment was severe. They were stripped of their league titles and relegated, sent down to the second division, Serie B. The club was drowning in shame, and its superstars were suddenly facing a future in football's minor leagues.
So you're Del Piero, you're a global superstar. You're a World Cup winner at the absolute peak of your powers. What do? The easy answer, the obvious answer, is you leave, right? Every top club in Europe would have signed him in a heartbeat. But for Del Piero, the choice wasn't about logic, it was about loyalty.
He stayed. In the club's absolute darkest hour, when all the glory and prestige was gone, the captain stayed. That one decision, that single act, would end up defining his legacy more than any trophy or any goal. And just like that, this was his new reality. Serie B, Italy's second division. The captain of one of the most famous clubs in the world, playing in out-of-the-way stadiums. It was a staggering fall from grace. But this is where the story gets absolutely wild. Because in that exact same year, as he was about to play in the second division, he became number 1 in the world. Just stop and think about that for a second. The absolute whiplash of it all. In the summer of 2006, he goes to the World Cup and helps Italy win the whole thing, scoring a massive goal in the semifinal. He literally went from the shame of relegation with his club to the absolute pinnacle of the sport with his country, all in the span of a few weeks. It's a story so dramatic you couldn't make it up.
So he brings Juventus back up, he restores the club's honor, and now we get to the final chapter of his time in Turin. A chapter that was all about cementing a legacy that was, in the end, about so much more than just winning.
19. 19 seasons. Just let that number sink in for a second. In today's game, where players bounce from club to club, that's almost incomprehensible. It's a kind of commitment, a kind of loyalty that you just don't see anymore. So when it was finally time to say goodbye, it wasn't some bitter breakup, no way. It was a celebration. The whole stadium was on its feet, a standing ovation that felt like it was never going to end. It was the perfect goodbye because it was exactly like his career. Emotional, respectful, and completely unforgettable.
And really, that's the legacy, isn't it? That's what it all boils down to. He proved you could be fiercely loyal without ever needing anything in return. He proved you could have all the elegance in the world without a single drop of arrogance. And he proved that true, lasting greatness, it doesn't need to shout to be heard.
Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? In this world we live in, where everything changes so fast and nothing seems to last, what is the true value of loyalty? Alessandro Del Piero's career is a beautiful, powerful reminder that some things like grace, dignity, and commitment, they never go out of style.